All right. Welcome back to the Tripping Off podcast, part 3, the final part, 2 questions clients ask.
We'll see.
Before we got to make it through the last 3 questions. I think we can. I'm feeling proud, feeling confident in our abilities here today. Oh my gosh. If you've been enjoying, I hope you have. I think these questions get asked all the time and they help. Well, they help so much in exploring and understanding and setting realistic expectations for hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So, to begin the last segment, the question I get asked all the time is hypnosis like stage hypnosis and like stage magic? And they make that comparison, like what is real, what is not real, and it's a good question because
I think so. Yeah.
it's a really good question because that is what people see the most. I think that people are most familiar with that because when you think about it, if someone's trying to sell out, a show for stage hypnosis, there's going to be a lot of advertising and
Yeah.
promotions,
Yep.
and they're going to make like a little like sizzler YouTube reel clip of like people doing crazy stuff on stage to like get hype up, like, oh my gosh, I better buy a ticket to go see this person do the thing.
And people talk about it a lot more because they're just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, did you see what that person did?
Right. So and so went with me and you should have seen what they did on stage. And so
That's much more viral than I had a major breakthrough about my childhood trauma.
exactly. Gosh, I mean, seriously, the struggle I have on TikTok, it's like I could give good, like therapeutic advice, but it's boring. I have to start somewhere that gains attention. It is a tough one. But what is real, what is not? There's a lot of energy put into the idea of mind control because fear sells. We're in October.
Sure.
It's about to be Halloween. We are presenting at Spooky Empire about some hypnosis stuff, some dream stuff.
Maybe.
Maybe. It got rescheduled because of Hurricane Milton. But fear sells, right? Shock value. The viral clickbait stuff you see as you're scrolling through Facebook. Like, if I can make you afraid, you will click on it. You'll buy a ticket, right? And so, you've got this crazy thing of like, hypnotist mind control. It sells. And so you have to separate the marketing from the techniques. Hypnosis is real, and what they are doing on stage has elements of real hypnosis in it, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to fixate someone's attention. You've got to give them a suggestion for how you want them to behave as a theatrical spectacle. But that's about it, right? The gathering attention and the giving the suggestions are about the level of relationship between hypnotherapy and hypnosis. And you got to understand that a lot of it is marketing and advertising.
Yeah. I think that I would say most of the things are the same techniques. And especially if you know what you're looking for, it's very easy to see them. Starting the trance work with open-eyed trance well before anybody gets up on stage.
Yes.
So the same thing's going to happen in the office. You're going to start giving suggestions, start setting guest sets, start doing a lot of that stuff prior to actually suggesting that your client relaxes and closes their eyes. But I think that's probably like where I'd say it stops is like
That's about it.
It's different everything after that because it's about the what rather than the process. The process being the same, maybe at the very beginning. But the what is and maybe I would challenge a client that asked me that same question to say, well, instead of asking the question, what's the difference between hypnotherapy and stage hypnosis, then we could have a conversation about the therapeutic aspects of it and why I'm choosing those suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, and for all the therapists like listening to this, that's a great point. That's a wonderful question for a client to bring up because it gives you the opportunity to talk about the therapeutic components.
Yeah.
Which in itself, like talking about the therapeutic components is a suggestion. So it's helpful to set the stage by talking about all of the benefit for hypnotherapy and why it's different. So to answer simply, there are elements of truth. There are elements of similarity between both of them. However, there's a lot of showmanship in the one in order to sell tickets, right? So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Like there's nothing that I'm going to do. This is my therapy office. Like there's nothing I'm going to do in my office here that is going to be done for the sheer enjoyment of spectacle.
Yeah, or to sell something.
I'm not.
Like
Yeah.
I don't get any other benefit from it. I'm not. There's no product that's going to be sold afterwards. It's for the client's benefit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Stage hypnosis is very much for the hypnotists.
Yeah, build, it's rock and roll, baby. Like I'm cool. Look at me. Look what I can do. Very flashy. So, I mean, that's about it for me. I mean, that one's kind of a simple question. It's a great one. I love it when clients bring that up. And if anything, it's like the fear marketing that happens for hypnosis brings an element of intention and curiosity to hypnotherapy, which can even be helpful. So I don't
Yeah.
mind those questions. Like it's certainly not offensive, like to ask.
No, I think they're
I love
good.
that.
They're great questions to. I mean, if a client is asking that question, then we're starting the process already.
Yeah, we're bought in.
Yeah,
This is good.
they're starting to say like, I don't want to just be doing something for the sake of it. I want to do something that's therapeutic. I want to get something from this, building motivation, and so I think it's great.
That's good stuff. That's
Yeah.
good stuff. All right. Well, the next question on the list, which we'll probably spend a little more time on, will I remember everything afterward? It's a
Yep.
little bit of yes and no.
Yeah, I was
It-
going to say, how would you answer that?
Yeah,
Because-
it's yes and no. The point, this is the way I'd start it. First, if you've ever been to normal talk therapy, do you remember all the words that were said in that session?
No.
Of course not. Case in point, clients will come back and be like, "What did we talk about last week?" They're like, "You said something really good. And what do you remember what it was?" I don't know,
Or
man, I could check my notes.
or the flip side of that is they'll add something to what I said.
Yeah, that I
so-
never said.
Yeah, like be like, oh, what you said is you said this way, and I was just like, one, I don't think I'd ever say that. Two, that tells me what you got from the session, and let's process that.
Yes.
And so I think what you're getting at is something that happens oftentimes in hypnosis, is that you don't remember everything, but your mind latches on to something that's important for you at that moment. And then you will absolutely remember that. You'll fixate on that. You'll probably do some more trance work on that afterwards, which is why a lot of people have dreams and
Oh, yeah.
like breakthroughs the next day or 2 days after or something along those lines, because it doesn't matter really if you will remember everything. It matters what you're taking from it.
Yeah. Well, and I've had clients who not only add things, right, but then will come back the next session and be upset with me for something that I said, or because they added something that I didn't say.
Sure.
And we'll have to like talk it through and be like, wow, that's, thank you. Again, it doesn't offend me. Like, please, if you're working with your therapist, like bring those things up. I would much rather talk about those things. And usually I can sense it. I'd be like, there's something different between us today. Like, are we okay? And I'll
Yeah.
say that to my clients all the
Yeah,
time.
me
Like,
too.
how are you and I? They'll be like, well, you said this thing. And I'll be like, oh, let's talk about it, And I always come at it with the approach of like, I love being wrong. Like, I don't do it on purpose, but if I'm wrong, like that's an opportunity for me to grow. So if I made a mistake, I'd love the opportunity to apologize. And I say that often. Like, I'd
Yeah.
love the opportunity to apologize. I'm not here trying to be perfect. I'm certainly not. I'd love the opportunity to work this through. So, anyways, I say that. I've also had clients who have just left, ghosted me, because they didn't, well, they added some things to what I was saying that were not what I was added, but are from past trauma.
Yeah.
They heard something I said as very judgmental when it definitely was not.
Yeah, is that they're projecting onto what you're saying as judgmental because they were being judgmental of themselves. And they couldn't probably accept the fact that they were being judgmental of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I had this client that came in and was just like, hey, I really didn't like that you suggested that my boyfriend is not good for me and that I should break up with him. One,
Well, I never do that.
I'm known for when clients say, I need an answer about this, for not giving them an answer. Like,
Frustratingly so.
yeah, frustratingly so. And so I was like, I don't think that I I said that you should break up with your boyfriend.
It's the joke. It's like, Zach, he's not going to give you an answer.
Yeah, he's not going to.
Because you don't. You're
It-
like, that's your choice.
especially if you ask a direct question like that, because the direct question signifies that there's a lacking of insight on the subject. So we're going to go into why there's a lack of insight in the subject. And then it was funny though, because I also experienced this a lot, especially when we do trance work,
Yeah.
is that somebody will come away with something like that, but then what they'll do is when you say like, do you think that I would say that? No, I know that you didn't say that. It just like felt like
Ooh.
I was projecting onto you, and they usually don't say it like this, but this is what they're saying. I was just projecting onto you what I know that I need to do, and I have a lot of resistance to that, and I'm like, okay,
Okay.
we can work with that.
As long as we're on the same page.
But no, I didn't say that you should break up with your boyfriend. He's not good for you. I might have said, wow, you are going around in a incredibly destructive cycle with this guy. What is that about?
That sounds more like Zach.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. So, anyways, memory, right? Oftentimes things will be added that were not there. Oftentimes things will be forgotten that were there. And here's what I want to talk about with this. We have to understand the way that human memory works. It is not, and I think this is where the confusion comes from. It's not like your smartphone, right? Your smartphone, you point it at the thing, it captures all of the data, right? Your brain doesn't work like that. There's far too much data that is being collected by your brain for it to store all of it. Now it stores an incredible amount. But the way that it prioritizes that data is through connection with your unconscious. Those things that are seen as emotionally significant are tagged and filed because your brain goes, oh, that's important. We need to hold on to that one. This is why it's so hard for you not to have intrusive trauma thoughts after a traumatic experience,
Yeah.
because your brain goes, that not only is important, but it's the most terrifying, important, critical thing for me to remember for the rest of my life forever and every minute in between.
Yeah.
And then you got the intrusive thoughts and the flashbacks. That's the way that memory works. So in hypnosis, we're going to go through an experience. There are going to be parts of that experience not super important for you to remember in vivid detail. There are going to be other parts you will probably never forget, right? Your brain, because I trust your unconscious, is going to tag those parts that are most important for you to remember, so that way you can take them with you. The goal is not memory erasing.
Yeah.
The goal is for your mind to soak up what it needs in that moment. And so those things that it soaks up are going to be remembered. Those things that it really didn't matter are not. And those things that I forgot to say, which perhaps I should have said, it will fill in and say that I said them even when I didn't, which is kind of cool.
Well, and just from a statistical perspective, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that in his book, I think Outliers, I think that it was that he pointed out some research that says that the unconscious mind can no, it's think fast. It doesn't matter.
Was it Malcolm Gladwell?
I'm pretty sure it was Malcolm Gladwell.
One of his books, though.
It says that the unconscious mind can take in about 10 million points of data a second.
How do you come up with that number?
They did a bunch of research on it.
So this is like this is not just a for funsies like number.
Project no. Like, well, I mean, the amount is like certainly a projection, because you can't, it's not like what's the difference between 10 million and 1 and 10 million and 32? Like it was, it's still a projection, but he also identified that it's like the conscious mind can only take in about 3,000 points of data a second.
Still pretty proud of that, but that's a big difference.
A huge difference.
3,000 versus how many?
10 million.
10 million.
Yeah. And
that's not even a percent.
Right. Like it's so disproportionate.
Wow.
I think the main study that triggered all of this was they were studying baseball players.
Okay.
And data coming at them from pitchers when they're batting.
Yeah.
Because it's like
so fast.
Actually, you have to make a decision on whether you're going to swing before the pitcher has released the ball.
Yep.
and where you're going to swing.
Yep.
So,
Whoa.
right?
Dude, baseball is kind of crazy.
Especially with the unconscious mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the what that brought up in me when I first read this was the idea that, and to corroborate what you were just saying, is that a lot of times what happens is the trauma, the actual trauma, is seen in that peripheral data that the conscious mind didn't pick up, and that's why it's traumatic, because the conscious mind is the unconscious mind is attaching an emotion and that tag that you're talking about to something that is unrecognizable from the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And so then when it just like, you're so accurate in that, because then what happens is the conscious mind is sitting here trying to make a decision about how to fix this trauma and how to move on and how to do all of this stuff, but it hasn't recognized all of the stuff that's in the peripheral of that 3000.
Yes. Yes. Oh, so you're making a distinction between like your intrusive thought is about that less than 1% of the experience
Less than 1%.
of 3,000 versus 10 million. And so in hypnosis, we're like, let's look at the 10 million data points surrounding the 3,000 you're focusing on, because that's going to provide 99+% of context to the part that you're struggling with.
So
Damn, that's, yeah, spot on. That's accurate.
will you remember everything consciously? Probably not. Will you remember what's important? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
All the time. Like there's never a time where I've done trance work with somebody, deep trance, closed-eyed trance, and then they come out of it and have just been like, what was that?
Hmm.
I didn't get anything. I don't
Oh,
remember
no.
anything.
No, not like that.
Never has that been the case.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important to understand. Like you will unconsciously remember every single data point,
Yes.
but consciously, no, probably not.
Consciously, no, probably not. And that's great.
Which really, it goes straight to that next point.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something on the tip of my tongue. The memory thing, remembering all the things. It's just not important. It's not important to remember all the things. Your mind will remember the stuff that's critical for you to hold on to. And I think this was my last point. I think the part that is important to understand when this question is asked is people know that messing with memory is something that kind of goes hand in hand with hypnosis. And so they'll kind of come in with this idea that it's important that I don't remember because that means that the hypnosis was effective.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
I want them to remember certain things. However, what is true and where you won't remember things, and I will be happy that you don't remember things, is sometimes. If you are too conscious and you're being overly analytical and overly critical, which is a conscious mind like function,
Yeah.
it can get in the way of the therapeutic work, right? Like, let's say that you're a people pleaser and, you're always trying to make other people happy. You never take up space. I need to give you the experience of just screaming and letting all those emotions out without you worrying about who's watching. What are they going to think of me? How's that going to happen? And so that's
Yeah.
just like an example, right? That's just kind of like anecdotal evidence. But if I can get your unconscious or get your conscious mind out of the way so you can have an unconscious experience without judgment, so that part won't be remembered, that's a great sign for me. And sometimes I will do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Where I want you to have this emotional experience without criticism. And because the conscious mind is offline during that experience, some of those details might not be remembered. But to your point, unconsciously, they absolutely will be remembered. So I'm kind of being sneaky and accomplishing some of the deepest therapeutic work
Yeah.
in a way that traditional conscious therapy cannot. And so that will be a goal of mine. So some things I might not want you to remember because I don't want you to judge yourself for them afterwards. And so that may be a suggestion.
Yeah, or like with some sort of like a trance work where we're like asking the client questions or getting them to respond or something like that.
Yeah.
They can be, if they're like on the tip of the conscious mind being put on the shelf, they'll oftentimes be kind of judgmental with themselves, and I hope that they don't remember that too. Like
Mhm.
it's like when they're reacting is like, I don't know an example, but or if somebody's saying in even open-eyed trance, they're being judgmental with themselves. Same principle applies.
Yeah. I've had even just sessions last week where I would ask a question in formal trance, in deep trance. I'd ask a question like, "What are you seeing?" Because I wanted some feedback. We were going to a place that they weren't super in touch with when they were conscious. And
Hmm.
so I want some
Yeah.
feedback about what they're seeing. And I know that when I ask my client to verbally say something, I'm bringing them a little bit out of the trance because now they have to engage back and they're thinking, right? Language processing happens in the conscious. So I'm activating their prefrontal cortex a little bit, but I do that and then tell them, good, that's right. Or
Yeah.
that's it. Or something positive to acknowledge that if you are feeling awkward or embarrassed or uncomfortable, that means we're headed in the right direction. So that
Mhm.
way I can again, I want to know what they're seeing, but then I want to take that conscious mind and put it back on the shelf so we can go back down, right? Because I need a little bit of data to know like what it is that that inner child wants, and then I can put it to the side and go back through. And so we
100%.
will do that. And so there may be some memory lapses in that piece. Um, I think to this point as well, people will ask about time distortions.
Mhm.
Your concept of time lives in your prefrontal cortex,
It goes away.
and so when you're in trance, that kind of goes away. It'll either seem a lot shorter or a lot longer than it actually is. Now, don't go using that as a litmus test of the efficacy of your hypnotherapy session because there's actually a really good dream parallel to this. People say clocks don't work in your dreams.
Yeah.
But then I'll get a bunch of people who post in the comments on my videos of like, oh, I see clocks in dreams all the time. And so, yeah, you know, just as a general principle, time distortion is a key piece of hypnotherapy. But if you don't have time distortion, it doesn't mean that you weren't hypnotized.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Just like in dreams, time doesn't work, but that doesn't mean that nobody has ever seen a clock in their dream. Some people do see clocks in their dreams, and sometimes they work kind of effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. And just
So,
because there's a clock that you see that is ticking away doesn't mean that is about actual time.
right.
That's a metaphor for so many other things.
That's great. Well, I just want to hit that point before we moved on, but you're right. This lends itself well to the next topic, which I get asked all the time. We saved kind of best for last. Can I recover lost memories in hypnosis? I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not going to give a direct answer
that's great. That's why I
because
want you to start.
because there's so much context to it. Because it's like, can I recover lost memories? You can recover lost emotions that are attached to memories, and
Ooh,
I would say
cart
it like
before the
that.
horse
Yeah,
moment there. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Good way of phrasing that.
Because like I've had many clients that have been like, I didn't realize that, like I kind of knew that this thing happened to me, but I I didn't know it until we did that trance and it like came to me. But with that said, we also know from a legal perspective, and we talk about this in the class at length, is that recovered memories and hypnosis are not a accepted in court.
No, no.
The
And that's the big thing. It's
Yeah,
like back in the day, they were putting people in hypnosis and recovering forgotten memories and then using those to convict people who never actually did the thing.
yeah, because it's so suggestive.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
Like why are the things that are remembered? I'm using air quotes for those listening on audio. Remembered in hypnosis. Why are those not admissible in court?
well, because the person that is hypnotizing them is obviously suggesting something to remember. And when you're suggesting something to remember, it's not going to be accurate. It's the hypnotherapist or the hypnotist's suggestion. And it's not going to be accurate because whatever happened at that time was stored away because of the emotional reaction to it. And if you had an emotional reaction to it and that's how it was stored, it's not, I mean, memory and I mean even eyewitness stuff is being challenged right now.
Yeah, eyewitness reports are super unreliable
Yeah,
statistically.
and so then like an emotional eyewitness report that you had forgotten and has been soaking up all of this unconscious energy is going to be even less accurate. With that said, I think that lots of clients can come in and remember something that is actually like unlocked. I don't think that I've ever experienced a situation where somebody's like, "Hey, I want to remember this thing that I can't remember. Can you hypnotize me so that I can remember it?" And then they remembered that. It's always been
I get that request all the time.
all the time. It's always been, we're doing some trance. Somebody comes out of the trance that session or the next week, and they say, "I've never told anybody about this because my unconscious mind locked it away because I wasn't in the space of being able to process this. And now I remembered it, and I need to process the fact that I do know that this happened."
Yes. Yes. My explanation for that, agreeing with all you say, but the reason that I explain that happens is when an event or an experience is so big that it threatens the organism, right?
Oh,
Us.
yeah.
When it threatens the organism's ability to procreate, eliminate, or consume, right? Eat, go potty, or, have good, fulfilling sex. Like, if the memory is so big that it threatens the function of the organism to survive, the brain kind of covers that over. It's
Yeah.
like, well, we have to continue existing, so let's just lock that one away for later or never.
Yep.
And so I like to talk about it, and I borrowed this from somebody, I don't remember who, but it's like a scab, which I think is a great metaphor. And so it's like a scab. You think about it, it's hard and crusty, but it's pretty inflexible too, and it's not meant to be there all the time. But it covers over that very sensitive pink and raw flesh that is developing underneath. And so if you think about a scab, it falls off when the skin underneath is strong enough to be exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
And so as long as that experience or that trauma is unhealed and not growing, it's still super raw, that scab will remain there, meaning that those memories will still be lost and not forgotten,
It,
or lost and forgotten.
it's a triage situation for your unconscious mind. It's your
Yeah.
unconscious mind saying,
Well, shit.
"Yeah, your scab's not ideal, but that's better than bleeding right now."
And that's the judgment call that your unconscious mind makes for you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, what instead, when people come in, they're like, "Hey, I'm coming to you for hypnosis to recover a forgotten memory." I'm like, "That's great. Can you tell me what you think you forgot?" Right? And so we start to talk it through. I explain the way that the brain works, that it's also unethical for me to go in and try and recover memories because memories are very suggestible, right? So if we go in, trying to find what did happen with my third grade teacher, you're already having the expectation that we're going to find something. So whether there was something or not, we're going to find something. And that may be made up, right?
Yeah.
What is consistent though is the emotion. I felt this, right? And so the mind may make up a story that kind of elaborates on that emotion. The story may not be true, but the emotion is true. I felt unsafe in third grade.
Right.
Well, it might not have been your third grade teacher. It might have been the things that your parents said to you before they dropped you off every day.
Right.
Right.
Or so many things.
Or so many things. So what I say is instead, this is the magic question that I ask. How would your life be different if we discovered what you think is lost? How would you be living your life different? I'm like, well, I would stop second guessing myself when I feel unsafe because that did happen to me. Well, you don't have to recover that memory in order for you to validate that you should feel safe.
Yeah.
So that's the better question. So I love these questions, and I love it when my clients ask me these because it's an opportunity to pivot to a healthier way of thinking. You don't have to recover the memory in order for your feelings to be valid. And that's what I want everyone to leave with.
Well, and just an example of that. Yeah, I mean, to try and recover something that your unconscious mind is saying, "We're not ready. We still need the scab,"
Yes.
is so unethical. And I wouldn't want to force that on somebody. That's traumatizing them.
Right.
Like,
Re-traumatizing.
yeah. And so like it's like, well, and I get this a lot of like my parents told me that this happened to me, but I don't remember it. That's usually how that person comes in. Somebody reminded me of this thing happening. And I'll actually say, like, to them, I don't think that I've ever used the scab metaphor, but like,
Mm,
if your unconscious mind is still protecting that, I'm not going to fight up against it because then you're going to hate me at the end.
yeah, that's not nice.
Yeah, why would you ask me to hurt you?
Ooh, let's explore that. Why would
Exactly.
you ask me to hurt you?
Let's create the healing because oftentimes the reason why I think that so many people are not in the space to where the unconscious mind gives that to them, lets the scab fall off, is because they're probably in a situation like that that's metaphoric to that in their life right now. So it's like, okay, you want me to go in with with that one? It's just like I felt unsafe with my third grade teacher. Somebody
Mm,
told me that they did something to me that was not sexually appropriate. How are your relationships right now? Like that's what I want to ask them because it's like, well, I have all of these relationships that aren't sexually appropriate. Huh. Well, we're not doing that then.
yeah,
But I get that all the time when somebody says like this thing happened. I want to recover it. It needs to open up. I need to talk about this, and I'll be like, well, you're not in a safe place, and that's why your unconscious mind isn't letting you go there.
that's going to
Let's
be
get in a
key.
safe place, and then what I bet will happen is the unconscious mind is just going to hand it to you, present it to you.
Yes.
I don't need to do anything about that.
Yes. Get into a safe place, or adding to that, that safe place could look like you developing the confidence and the health and
Absolutely.
the strength to be in a mental place that your mind now feels comfortable. Hey, you are strong enough to handle this memory. Now I can gift it back to you.
Yeah.
And that's usually the key. That's where we pivot to is like, let's focus on getting you well. So that way you're resilient enough. You have your resources. You've established some good support relationships outside of therapy to where now your mind has the opportunity to let you remember things that may not be remembered. That's the best way to go about memory retrieval. And now, that being said, I have that happen all the time. We recover memories all the time, but it's not in the way that people think.
Because what happens is that they're in a safe place for the first time.
Yes, yes. And that's the goal. The goal is not mind control. The goal is not erasing memories. It's to get you into a safe place
Hmm.
for the first time. So,
I'd be a lot richer if it was mind control.
man, right? Finances are a struggle. Mind
if
control would be great.
it worked that way, I'd be a lot more rich.
I mean, that being said, even if I could, I wouldn't want to. But we joke, we joke. I hope you remember that. If you haven't given hypnotherapy a try, I hope you give us a call. You know, we've got a bunch of great students who are graduating from the course who are doing really, they blow me away, who are doing incredible things with their clients in hypnotherapy. And so if you're interested in that, you want to just try it out, like let us know. There's all sorts of contact information down below. If you're interested in taking the course, we're very proud that we finally have it. Do at your own pace. It's all online, and so you can take it. You can learn some of these things that we're talking about in a much longer context that will apply directly to your work, whatever medical field that you're in. It's so helpful. So, with that, have a wonderful week, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.